everyone. Welcome to another episode of All Things Indian, Friendly Voices. Today, all of us, most of us, at least 70-80% of the population of, adults, we all use some kind of gadgets, computers, mobile, or laptop. So, in fact, it's become part of everybody's household as well as in the office. In fact, most of the jobs are now automatized, and so this is going to be part of it. But when it comes to, we all use internet for everyday usage, so for to find a way to get to know something new. So we all use, and in the last 2 years, because of the pandemic, we all have seen that it's become part of curriculum also. So soon we are already having augmented reality videos, advertisements. Pepsi has released one, and already in India, previous classes in Kerala and Karnataka, they have started augmented reality to bring knowledge better, more relatable way to children. Yet the whole thing, the computer literacy, in the sense that literacy about what is cyber, what is internet, we are going to talk about something very important, integral part of this, all these things, something called what's security, cyber security. So to discuss this, we have two wonderful friends with us.
Hi, thank you, Rajmohan. And let me welcome Boopathy Raja and Suman Kar to our program. And thanks to both of you guys for joining us for the discussion here. And as Rajmohan mentioned, this is an extremely important aspect of our life nowadays, that is the cyber security. To discuss this, we have Boopathy Raja. Now, Boopathy Raja has been an ITES professional and technology journalist for more than 22 years now. So initially, he was in a decade in independent consulting, basically doing information security practitioner as a senior information security practitioner. He was focusing on application security, on information security management systems, implementing ISO 27001. And basically, this was done in small and medium enterprises. Now, currently, he's gone a level above. He's looking at large organizations, large corporations, like he's handling information technology and transformation for large railways, aerospace, defense, and manufacturing organizations. That's about Boopathy. The other person who's with us, welcome Boopathy, and welcome to the show. Now, next one, the other person with us, Suman Kar. Kar is the founder of Banbreach. This is a cybersecurity firm which is based out of Calcutta, or Kolkata, as we call it now. I being an old timer, always go to Calcutta, but Kolkata is a term now. Now, he's had nearly 2 decades of experience building secure software. So apart from building a secure mesh router, he spends his time consulting organizations on how to mitigate security incidents. His research involves cryptocurrency, digital frauds, and network security. Now, his work has been covered in many global outlets such as Vice, Huffington Post, Forbes, Krebs on security, etc. He's also been giving talks on UX and security. He's moderated sessions on a broad range of topics like data governance to election security, all of which are very important in today's context. And he also provides pro bono data breach advisory to public and private organizations. So welcome to you, Suman, and we're very happy to have you here.
Thank you.
So thank you. So I'll hand it over back to Rajmohan to start the discussion. Rajmohan?
Yeah. So first of all, let's start with a person like me. I don't know what is cyber security. So both of you can answer. So what exactly is this cyber security? Is it security of a mobile while using internet? What is it? Boopathy, we can start with you.
Sure. Firstly, thank you both for having me on the show. So cybersecurity. So before we get into cybersecurity, let me tell about the word cyber. So it comes from cybernetics. What it means is the theory or study of communication and control, coined in 1948 by a U.S. mathematician Norbert Wiener, right? And as a standalone noun, cyber for unknown reasons in the 90s was used as a short form for cybersex. And then comes cyberspace, the online world of computer networks, especially the internet, the environment in which communication over computer networks take place. Often written in as two words at first, in 1982 was coined by a science fiction author William Gibson, best known for his work Neuromancer. So, not sure exactly when the term cybersecurity came into practice, but must be around the 70s or 80s. Suman, do you want to add more, please?
So the thing is, the term cybersecurity did not gain popularity until about the late 90s or mid 90s, right? 95 and 96, I guess. But the notion of computer security has been around for a long time, especially since 1967, when the Ware report, so this was written by an employee of the Rand Corporation on the insistence of the US government. So it came out. So when this Ware report came out, it made it essentially changed the way people especially in government, were looking at computers and the future that it held. So, in one sentence, I would say the notion of computer security has been around for a while, but cybersecurity is a term that has gained popularity only in the last, let's say, 25, 30 years.
I mean, what security we are talking about?
Yeah. Okay. So let me expand on Rajmohan's question. So when you say cyber security, are you talking about security pertaining to devices which are connected on the internet, or are you talking about all kinds of security of devices, like even if they are not connected to internet and those sort of things?
I think it started with computers and computer networks, but with the expansion of computing devices, with the advent of handheld devices that could connect to network, your smartphones today, or your earlier your personal digital assistants, or today you have your laptops and your iPads and other tablet devices, all of that. And in matter of fact, today with the advent of Internet of Things, be it your washing machine, your microwave oven, your refrigerator, anything that is connected to the internet, your Bluetooth headphones and Bluetooth devices, various devices that use Bluetooth technology. So I believe now cybersecurity on a broader spectrum covers all of it. Now, anything to do with security with respect to any of these devices that we use in our day-to-day life, which connects to any kind of network, which transmits information, which communicates from one device to another. Everything gets covered under the gamut of cybersecurity.
Wow.
It's
Okay.
fantastic. Yeah.
Okay. Very good. That sort of
yes. I mean, I think I just want to add one small thing. So when people started thinking about computer security, they started with the idea of securing devices, the network, and of course the people who were using it.
You mean protecting?
Right. So essentially we call them assets. Okay. Now what has happened recently is that, especially with the advent of artificial intelligence and other machine learning technologies, is that, these assets have evolved over time. So we are no longer just talking about devices or networks or even people, but we are also talking about artificial intelligence models, and we are also talking about data, right? Because these are also important sources of a business's competitive advantage, or the service that they provide. So I would say, it's kind of hard to define what cybersecurity covers and what it doesn't, especially with the change in technology and in the speed at which technology is evolving.
Okay, fine. I think that's fair enough. So probably we should currently go with whatever Boopathy has said, that probably anything that transmits, any device that transmits data and receives data from connected networks, we could probably gather it into cybersecurity. But you have also made a point, it is not just the devices alone that we are securing the network and other assets like data and artificial intelligence models and so on. As you said, it's a fairly wide gamut of things that we are talking about nowadays. Okay, in this case, let me come to this question. Like, I don't know if my classification is correct, but for a lay person terms, I'm thinking in terms of security from three viewpoints. One, from the viewpoint of government organizations. Second, from viewpoint of non-government corporations. And third, from the viewpoint of an individual. Corporations, government, all sizes may vary, but typically sectors in each corporation may have their own requirement of security. Government may have each of them security, right? So let's start with one thing. So let's start with the government. So if you are talking about securing the government organizations, so what do you mean by that? What are the challenges that government organization would face? Boopathy, you can take it, and then Suman can also. Yeah.
So, whether it is an individual or an organization or a government institution, I'd say it's all pretty much the same in a way. However, the attack vectors or methodology may vary based on the target, the landscape of the target, and of course, the crucial factor is the impact it could cause in each case.
Exactly.
And an individual, let's say, attacking an individual, what could one gain out of it? And attacking an organization, a corporate, what could one gain out of it? And attacking a government institution, what could one gain out of it? So, based on the what we call it is the attack surface or the scope rather that is available for attack, and the impact that it would cause. I think the methodologies are pretty much there is no one size fits all or anything of that sort, but in general you have various methodologies used based on the operating system, based on the available entry points that is available, and based on the kind of security that hardening that has been done, so on and so forth. But the impact, I think that's the key factor. It all boils down to threats one's exposed to and threat model that they can operate upon. I think Suman has fairly done quite a lot of work working with government organizations as well, helping them secure, reported quite a lot of vulnerabilities, even over a personal chat over about a couple of days ago, there were some vulnerabilities that came up to our purview because of Suman identifying it. I think he can add more to this.
Yeah, Suman, I think you're, yeah. Okay, before Suman, you answer, I just want to just expand on this a bit. What I also meant when I said challenges in government is, what are also the challenges that they face in implementing a security solution as well? I mean, as a government, as you use these words like attack vector and all. So for a government, would these be higher? Would whatever, I mean, you said attack surface would be higher. And the internal challenges of them, because they have to serve the whole country, for example, how does that add to their to the whole challenge, right? So can you also expand on those parts, Suman?
I'll try to.
Sure.
But I'll just go back to, I think I'll just, expand a bit on what Boopathy said with examples. I think that might be helpful.
Sure.
So, for example, when we talk about government, we essentially are talking about this amorphous entity, and this entity exists in different levels. For example, there is a federal government, there is a state government, then there is local panchayat or whatever,
government,
local administration, right? Now, we have to understand that these three levels of government are exposed to different levels of risk. For example, the federal government, for the federal government, the primary risks are from espionage from foreign governments or national security issues, such as, some other competing power will try to sabotage your military and civil defense systems, or there might be profit motivated attackers who are trying to compromise your civil critical infrastructure, which would be typically finance, healthcare, and telecom. Then there could be attackers who are trying to compromise the services that you provide to citizens. For example, let's say the central government provides you with a passport service, right? It provides you with passports or other identification documents, right? So if someone attacks those systems, they not only get hold of data, but they also sabotage a very important function of the government.
Right.
At the state level, the state provides you certain services and utilities, such as roads and education. Now,
even as simple as paying property tax.
Absolutely, but that would be probably under the local administration level.
That's what I'm saying. Oh, okay. Okay.
Right. So so that would be under state. Okay.
Sure.
So so for so that's what I'm saying. So different levels of government are they're exposed to different levels of risk. Now, there is also another fairly complicated problem to which we don't have answers today. And there's a fantastic paper, by the way, from an University of Tampa professor in political science. He's called Jonathan Llewellyn. He came up with this paper last year, and he basically discusses the problem of authority allocation, as in when a new technology like cybersecurity or a new technology issue like cybersecurity comes up, the government often doesn't really know how to respond to the challenges posed by this new technology. And so there is this internal strife between different departments of the government as to who will actually go and regulate this technology, right? So there's this huge lacunae, or there's this huge gap, right? If the government doesn't even have one particular organization or a set of organizations responsible for cybersecurity, it becomes very difficult for the government not only to guide the public, but also to, secure themselves.
Yeah.
Right. The second problem, of course, is with budget. While the central government might have enough budget, we cannot say the same for the state and local administration governments, right? Then there is also the issue of awareness, right? Cybersecurity is an extremely fast-moving field, and to stay on top of the changes, it has to be a full-time task. So the government is reactive, right? They're reacting to things as and how they happen, right? And they haven't yet had the time to respond to cybersecurity challenges, which is why government departments today do not yet have a cybersecurity function. So they don't have people who know how to deal with these sort of issues and respond to them. Okay. So there's this people challenge, right? And of course, there's a process challenge, as in, if they don't understand this new technology, if there aren't enough people to help them understand, and there is a regulatory gap, as in the existing regulations are not sufficient to put a leash on this new technology, then defining a process to handle cybersecurity challenges also becomes a problem. So all these people, process, and technology related issues come together to make it extremely difficult for the government organizations.
So just
1 second, Suresh. I have a question. Because all the three of you explained beautifully, but something like the world is there. The world is never still. It keeps on changing. Okay, every day something new comes. So somebody, according to this lifestyle, somebody invents something. Somebody connects it to some other network. Okay, then what government has to do? Government has to react. Obviously, then they have to bring that into the ambit of whatever that they already have in the system. So it is a kind of, as you said, it's a dynamic. The whole thing is dynamic. So that being the case, that there may not be a 100% foolproof solution at any point of time, correct? And like, I don't know, like, for what you mentioned, 3 levels and all, Bhupati explained beautifully. But see, something like what I say is State Bank of India. Okay. They, out of 140 crore people, I think they have 60 crore people have put their money there. So they have 1,000 branches or something like that. They are all, connected by network. But only one person, one institution, I think, if I'm not wrong, NIC, it's all stored in NIC server, right? If something happens to that, then what is the solution? I don't know. Like, I think they should also have some kind of a dynamic. Is there any kind of a dynamic solution? Because situation is fast moving, as you like Suman said, all the time.
So I that was my question, Rajmohan, which I was supposed to, I was trying to ask them a supplementary question. So I think both of you are cybersecurity experts, and I'm sure.
Suresh, sorry to interject. I think your voice is a bit low. If you could speak in a little bit, that will help.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, better.
Okay. Now, what I wanted to ask you was, like, if you look at the cybersecurity standards and some of the databases that are available, most of them are coming from the US Department of Defense, right? The NCD database and the CV database type of thing. So US seems to have a very strong cybersecurity thing where they proactively not only find out the bugs, they also incorporate into the global database, which is coming in. So I just wanted to ask you, is there any such organization in India which is like similar to the Department of Defense's NCD database? Is there an organization which contributes to it? Is there an organization in India which tries to do something on those lines?
Sadly, in my experience and understanding, I don't think there is any such institution closer to what NIST or the DoD of the US government, the way they function. Primarily, I think I would go back to what Suman pointed out. I think there is a lot of this boils down to the fact of budgetary allocation. Now, threats could be both internal and external, foreign, state actors, or it could be even, local actors who could,
sabotage
from certain aspects of it. Point in case that there was a situation where voter IDs were created using a election commission officials ID, right?
Okay.
Close to I think 10,000 or 15,000 IDs were created. Now, who benefits from it? We don't know. What was the outcome? We don't know. What transpired in the investigation? We don't know. So first thing is, one is budgetary allocation. But the way I look at it is, there has got to be a lean way. You have to start somewhere, and you have to build on top of it. But that's how you build capability, right? So we have signal intelligence. Similarly, we depend a whole lot on signal intelligence with respect to the intelligence that we get. So similarly, we have to spend money, deploy manpower or human power rather, and ensure that we have that capability. Now we have what is called as the National Council for Critical Infrastructure, I believe.
NCIIPC.
Yes, NCIIP. But still we depend on, as you rightly pointed out, Suresh. Still we depend on the data that we get from the NIST and the standards from NIST and the data that we get from the Department of Defense from the US. I think this situation, we have to get into a level playing game, just like we have our leveled up to greater extent with respect to other forces that we have, be it our armed forces and so on and so forth. So we definitely have to spend a whole lot of time. There has been a head who's been appointed to handle this, but that's been about 3 years now, if I'm right, and we are seeing very minimal action on that. It's a sad thing. It has to change, but this is the fact, at least known to me and within the community.
So to be fair to India, so we are pretty late into the game, right?
Okay.
And the US sort of always have had this first mover advantage when it comes to the internet or anything related to the internet. And the CD or any of the vulnerability reporting databases, these are open, right? Anyone can go and legally use them, and that is what security researchers across the world do. So there really isn't right now, at least, a lot of need to reinvent the wheel. That said, I am aware of efforts, and I'm part of some of them, where university professors are trying to come up with new security standards or frameworks, something that NIST does, for example, in the US. So some of these efforts are underway, but again, these are fairly new. I mean, they've started only in the last 2 or 3 years, and I think it'll take a little while before these standards mature and they get to a place where they can be implemented.
Okay.
But that means more money has to be pumped in.
That is an issue, by the way. That is an issue.
I mean, yeah. So two things. One is that when you people are talking about threat and all, so attack vectors, so somebody is attacking. Okay. So fairly, from what I know, what I read in news, I assume that they are called hackers. Okay. So we are talking about government, and very something. I think the guy's name is Yamadharma Raja. He once hacked into one particular government sites. Okay, he hacked into the system network, and so then after 2 days he came back and said, I'm a moron. Okay, to have hacked into government networks. All that these buggers are doing is passing on from the top to bottom to please change the password. So that is the level of understanding response to a kind of cyber attack. And he says they are sending emails, same government emails, and they are asking them to change the passwords. He said, I'll never come in this direction, leave alone attacking them. I will never touch these any other government sites, not only one country, any country, except I think China and the USA, rest of the fellows react the same way. That's what he said. Okay, so the thing is, also I hear something called ethical hacker. I mean, are there good hackers, bad hackers, something like that? Boopathy, you can start with that.
Sure. So it's a misnomer to begin with. To call a criminal a hacker. So to understand the true sense of the term hacker, one should read this essay that has been written in 1986 by a computer security hacker who went by the handle or pseudonym The Mentor. The essay's name is The Conscience of a Hacker, also known as the Hacker Manifesto. He belonged to a hacker group, Legion of Doom. In true sense, to give a gist, in true sense, hackers are curious individuals, explorers who seek after knowledge, who exist without skin color, without nationality, without religious bias, and any other denominations. It's a curious mind. I mean, in India we call in Hindi they call it jugaad, right? So that's all it is. What can you achieve without paying a huge price to let's say a multinational corporation which charges a huge price for something very simple which you can do by yourself. So going towards this is your right to repair. Manufacturing a device which you cannot repair, which you cannot replace components. It's manufactured in such a way, it's packed in such a way that if you try to replace a component, you will end up breaking the entire device, right? So most often, cyber criminals are incorrectly called hackers. This is what people, hackers, the true hackers, in true sense, this is what anybody would say. And with respect to are there individuals, are there collection of individuals, groups? As I said, the mentor belonged to the hacker group called Legion of Doom. There is a extremely popular cult group called Cult of the Dead Cow, and people from various other groups. I'm right now forgetting the name of the group. Probably someone could remember. A bunch of folks who were part of that group, who kind of were in the original Cult of the Dead Cow, then created their own kind of a setup group. They went to the US Senate to testify against about security issues that the nation is facing. So they are hackers. So if they are hackers and they are criminal, why should they go and testify in the Senate? So that's a misnomer. We take hackers take offense to it. If calling a criminal a hacker is a mighty offense. But as I was saying, as criminals go, they exist as individuals, function as groups as well. Imagine somebody needing more than one person to carry out a criminal act in cyberspace, right? So a team of people with various skill set, various levels of skill set get involved in activities. So the clarity should be such that hackers are not criminals. Can a criminal be a hacker? Yes, they can be. Right.
What is ethical hacking?
Yeah, so that is another. It's a joke within the security community. There is nothing called ethical hacking. There is only hacking. Yeah. What purpose? The individual uses their skills of hacking is what defines whether it is ethical or unethical. So anything that is unethical is unethical, and anything that you do is anything that you do for your learning purpose, the purpose of betterment of something, a system. You don't need to really call it ethical hacking. It is hacking, as simple as that.
Sure. Suman.
Yes. So I get this question often, and I usually point people to this document called the RFC 1392. Okay. It's essentially the Internet Users Glossary, and it has a fantastic definition. It says a hacker is a person who delights in having an intimate understanding of the internal workings of a system, computers, and computer networks in particular. It also goes on to add this. The term is often misused in a pejorative context where cracker would be the correct term. So a criminal hacker or cracker, would probably be the term that the media should have picked up. It hasn't. It is stuck with the older term. Now, this RFC came in mid-90s, but there was another document that people would refer to. It still exists online. It's called the Jargon File. It's a glossary and usage dictionary of slang used by computer programmers. And that document has a number of definitions, by the way. It starts off by defining what the term hacker originally meant. So the term hacker originally meant someone who made furniture with an X. Okay.
Yeah.
So sort of a carpenter. And then, and then it goes on, gives a number of 6-7 definitions, but I'll just stick with one. And it says, a hacker is a person who enjoys exploring the details of programmable systems and how to stretch their capabilities, as opposed to most users who prefer to learn only the minimum necessary. And this, I think, is the most important part. A hacker is someone who's driven by curiosity rather than greed or with an intent to harm others.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I guess it. Okay, so just to also put this in perspective to Rajmohan, from what I heard, sir, ethical hacking mostly refers to people in an organization employing people, their own people, to hack into the system to find out security holes. Would that also be a part of ethical hacking?
Well,
As understood by the normal term.
yeah. So, organizations derived from the defense, a whole lot of security terminologies are derived from the defense, terminologies. What we have is a blue team and a red team and then a purple team. So the blue team's role definition being defenders. So they defend against any threats against an organization, and they work towards learning about methodologies that a threat actor would employ against their assets. And the red team in an organization is a kind of a team which challenges the blue team from time to time. So it's a small set of people who are with the organization, but will do everything possible to challenge the blue team so that they are internally prepared, right? And then you have your purple team. Purple team is a combination of both red and purple. The color red and blue, mixed together gives you purple. So they do combination of both, roles. So employing an ethical hacker. So what the industry became with these kind of terms that are being used: an ethical hacker, ethical hacking certification.
Correct.
These are fads, and
I get it.
a whole lot of what we call as the snake oil sellers try to pull this fast one against unsuspecting individuals to take up a certificate, to a course, and so on and so forth. To give a kind of a positive imagery as well, of course.
Correct.
Right? So frowned upon, but this is what it is. We live with that. We deal with such terminologies being used.
This. Okay. Now, So now, just expanding on this. Now we're going ahead. Now we saw about the government and the hackers. Now the next question is a natural one. So how do you what are the ways in which someone can get into a government site or hack into a government site? What sort of attacks can happen? I know there could be multiple, but what do you think are primarily happening around the world? And if you can highlight some government sites that got impacted either in India or abroad, that could also be good, which are known.
Quite a lot of them. See, as you rightly said, the methodologies are methodologies vary, and depends on the vulnerability that can be exploited in a asset, in a digital asset. Various methodologies are employed. Now, to come to the question of sites that have been hacked, I mean, we are only talking about a website, right? That's only one portion of the front end of the entire infrastructure, right? So, quite a lot of websites. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on and on. In last, I think, although in last 1 year, the numbers have come down. Earlier, repetitive hacking of the same website has happened. So there is a database where we can see the number of sites that have been defaced or hacked, right? So more like
okay. So let me just clarify. When I said a site, I would mean a site in the sense of not exactly a physical site, but a whole thing, like a government organization, rather than the website. I'm meaning the whole organization. Like they say, you enter Yahoo, and very recently I think Gravitar had a leak where all passwords and your usernames got hacked
Yeah.
out, and people were intimated that this has happened. So site, I mean, much beyond the website, I mean the whole organization.
True, true. So what happens is when you have a services, a website that provides services, information services,
Hmm.
which stores user information, personally identifiable data. When those sites get hacked, it impacts the infrastructure by itself because information gets leaked, as in or is exfiltrated by the just by the mere act of hacking it or breaching the security. You are able to access the entire database, which is not the way to go, right? So the moment the entire database is available, that is sold in underground markets,
Yeah.
where this information further used by criminals to defraud customers of say banking system or any other system where monetary benefits are available, even with Amazon or be it Flipkart or to name top e-commerce sites, right? So what happens is predominantly the methodology happens to be what is called as smishing or spear phishing. What it does is sends the individual, the threat actor sends an individual because they have their information like first name, last name, their phone number, their banking information to some extent. And when they send a SMS to an individual saying that your card ending with XYZ whatever number is going to be blocked, you'll have to click on this link to unblock it immediately. Unsuspecting users. I mean, see, let's understand one thing. In India, particularly, the promulgation of internet, the speed that it has grown, right, is phenomenal as compared to many other countries. I would say, at least. Today, everybody has a smartphone. At least, so what is being told by data is at least 45% of population have some kind of a smartphone or they are connected to the internet. So with that, what happens is unsuspecting users, quite a lot of them, and even educated, well-educated. We have got doctors or incidents where you have IAS officers, you have MLAs, anybody. They have lost money. Financial fraud has happened against them because they were they couldn't understand between the message coming from an actual bank or from a threat actor, right? So this happens, and then your spear phishing. Spear phishing is a methodology where a very cleverly crafted email is sent to a targeted person by studying their all their interactions with various other people and information that they share in social media and so on and so forth. Based on that, a cleverly crafted email is sent, which they believe, and then they click on that link or anything that comes in that email, and then it's game over literally, because the moment you click on it, it can capture all the passwords that is stored in your browser. It can capture further track on information that you are sending out. From there on, it can even monitor your computer or your phone. Possibilities are endless with that methodology. So in an organization, in a government institution, again, the attacks are the system is one part, human beings who interact with the system is another part. So it's it's always said that the weakest link is the human being that is who is there in front of the system. Now, it's not their fault though. A whole lot of time, I would say, because awareness, again, as Suman pointed out earlier, awareness is a extremely key factor, because of which even well-experienced people fall prey to such attacks very easily.
Okay, good. Suman, your own sense of how do attacks, because you're also working with the government to develop frameworks. So how do attacks happen on government sites? What are you currently doing to protect them?
As I was saying earlier, there are different levels of government, right? And they face different kinds of risks. For example, the state or local level administration is more likely to face a lowly skilled adversary. For example, let's say there's some hot button issue and you will see a group of activists who are opposed to the steps that the government are taking go and deface some website, right? That doesn't take a lot of skill. On the other hand, if you are looking at, let's say, the Bank of Bangladesh heist, right, that was trying to siphon off $1 billion, or the colonial pipeline hack, or even the SolarWinds issue, right? Or even some of the ransomware attacks that we have seen in the US and Europe, right? These are crippling central governments, right? Or their or the services that they provide, right? And they are carried out by highly scaled, sophisticated, and sometimes nation state adversaries, right? So there's this huge spectrum, okay? And the attackers can come from anywhere, right? So does that answer your question? The first part, at least?
Yeah. Sort of, yes.
I think the other question that you had was where are the loopholes, right?
Yeah, correct.
See, the loopholes can, so the first area where you would look for loopholes is definitely the systems. And by systems, I would mean both the devices as well as the networks that are being used, right? Given the fact that there isn't a lot of awareness or there isn't a lot of capability baked to government departments, systems and devices are often not well protected. And the fact that we don't even have a nationalized standard plays into this. So people don't even know what standard to follow when they're trying to secure systems.
Correct.
In fact, you see a number of government organizations and government officials to this day they'll use the free Gmail accounts or one of those Hotmail accounts to communicate official business.
Correct.
So about the loopholes, yes, I was just saying that there is a lack of capability, there's a lack of regulatory oversight, and of course there's a huge gap in funding, right? So these sort of make it extremely difficult to secure systems. Also, the thing is that our adversaries are, especially adversaries which are targeting critical infra, or a foreign government who's targeting your civil or military defense systems for espionage, they're extremely skilled. Finding those out, finding such adversaries, that would take special skills, and I'm not sure we have invested enough.
Okay. Now, can I just ask you this, just for people to understand? You were talking about one thing, like you said that there was an attack on Bangladesh bank and billions of dollars were supposed to be siphoned off and all that, right? The question is, just to make people understand the issues, can you tell how that attack happened? If that should be like a use case where you can tell how the attack happened, and is there a root cause analysis done, and we have a result of how it happened and how they prevented finally, how it was discovered?
Yes. So there's an article either in the New York Times or Washington Post, I don't remember, or probably Forbes, and it does a fantastic job of going into the details. But let me give you a teaser here, because it's a fairly long story. So it was a long weekend, right? People had gone off. So people had Friday, Saturday, Sunday off, right? And and most of so the bank, there was really no one on since Thursday night. So Thursday night after everyone has left. So there was this entire period of 72 hours or a little more than that, during which there was very little oversight into what's happening inside the bank systems.
Oh.
And this is important. Then what happened was someone broke into the network and found this multifunction printer, something we all use, okay, and found a flaw in it. And they exploited that flaw to gain access to other systems, right? And from those other systems, they gained access to the SWIFT transaction system. And then what they did, remember, this is a long weekend, there's no one, right? So they started the attack on Thursday evening. And by Friday evening, I think they had access to the SWIFT system. And I think by Saturday, they had essentially pushed out a request to transfer everything that the Bank of Bangladesh had in its reserves, which would be about $1 billion, out to some shady account in Sri Lanka.
Oh, okay.
Now, the attackers made one small mistake. They used, in one of the transactions, they basically goofed up and they used a string that the US Fed was basically monitoring for fraudulent transactions. And that's how they noticed that there was this huge transaction request from Bangladesh and they didn't really know what to do with it. And so they stopped it. But that it was too late because by that time, 100 million had been siphoned off already.
Oh.
But this is, one thing that I don't understand is suppose there is a bank, okay, federal bank, whatever bank it is, when it goes beyond a particular amount of money, so obviously red flags will pop up and it requires within the system, banking system itself, another confirmation from somebody. Is it possible to bypass everybody, everything, all the checks and balances and siphon of money?
So I don't remember the exact details, and you'll have to probably find the story. But if I remember correctly, the attackers had. So there were two things actually that worked in the attackers' favor. A, they had done a lot of homework, so they forged some of the authorization requirements, and B, the system that was being used, the SWIFT system, right, that transfers the money, it isn't extremely secure.
Wow. Oh.
Some of these extremely critical infra that we use and we depend and our lives depend on are not secure enough. For example, it's not just the SWIFT system, by the way. It's the SS7. There is an SS7 system we all use for, telephony. So every smartphone, right, depends on SS7, and it is insecure. There's no security there, right? So it's essentially a no-brainer to snoop on your calls, the SMSs that you got. And that's what, the spyware selling companies mostly do.
Oh, okay.
Like Boopathy, you remember this story? There was a movie called Chaos. Jason Statham, that that fellow, if there are 1 million accounts are there all over the nation, okay, above $1,000 means red flag will pop. They collect 999.99, so they wipe off and the person will walk away with millions and millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, right? You remember that?
Right. So this is what is called as a business logic based vulnerability. Now, when an attacker, a threat actor does their homework and knows that such, are the systems, such is the business logic that has been put in place. So as, just as it is shown in the movie, if it is below $1,000, it's not going to flag. So let me do below $1,000 all the transaction, right? So business logic vulnerabilities are exploited in such a way, such that, example. So earlier there used to be a whole lot of such vulnerabilities where, a website will send a PIN number to you for a transaction or something of that sort. For a long time, that PIN number was sent from the front end, which can be snooped by anybody.
Yeah.
Right? So it did not come from the back end. So such issues were there in the system, which gotten fixed over time. So as you rightly pointed out earlier, it's a continuous evolution, and with cyber security or IT security, there is really no silver bullet, and there is nothing called 100% guaranteed solution, because what is 100% this moment, the next moment, something or the other comes up.
Correct.
So it's very tricky, and that's why. So as Suman said, the whole bank heist could happen because for 72 hours plus, there was nobody to monitor the system.
And also I wanted to just ask both of you guys this question, right? Because Boopathy brought up the movies. In movies, right, the hacker is like, okay, tell me anything, and immediately 2 minutes he hacks. I mean, that's a biggest joke, because as Boopathy is saying, right, people study the characteristic of whom they want to attack for months together, sometimes years, before they can in fact guess a password or something. But movies is very good, right? I think Boopathy, if he becomes a hacker in the movies, like 2 minutes, you're all gone.
No, so there is a flip side to it as well. Say, for example, I mean, there are today there are tools that are available now. A whole lot of scenarios. People go to a coffee shop, sit with their laptop, and in between they get up and go out for a smoke, or to the restroom, or to get another refill of a drink or whatever, right?
Without blocking the screen.
So that is one thing. Without locking the system is one thing. Even with the locked system, in reality, there are tools that are available. Within say 30 seconds to 60 seconds, I plug in a USB device onto somebody's system. I'll be able to plant a tracker. I will be able to read files, exfiltrate files. These are tools that are available today. So as much as it's shown in movies, exaggerated, we may say, these are all, I think somewhere they would have done the technical study, and a whole lot of these things, probably, some are creative ideas, right? But at the same time, are they really not possible? Is a very interesting question, and the rabbit hole is too deep.
Okay. Yeah, Rajmohan.
Yeah, Suman.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think most of the portrayal that we see in movies regarding hacking, it's wrong. But then there are a few movies, by the way, who actually do it right. And I think one of the most famous examples is definitely the Matrix movie. I mean, they start off with an Nmap scan, which is essentially one of the first things that you do when you start out hunting for vulnerabilities. Okay. So yeah, there are some movies that do it right.
Yeah, but it's so much of knowledge is available with all of us. Okay, so Suman said we are late into the game. We are very much late, whereas other people have already had so much of they had time to do trial and error, check what is working, what is not working, etc. Whereas India entered very late. And unfortunately for us, boom happened when we entered. Okay, so we are in a very impossible situation, right? And with so much of knowledge available everywhere, yet there is a breaches are happening, not only in government sites and elsewhere also. So, how do you think it can be? I don't know. What is awareness? You are saying that at the low user end, okay. And what about organizations? Do they give training to people to do all these things?
Yeah, and I just want to expand on what Rajmohan said. So when he said new breaches, like in spite of knowing everything, you had this SolarWinds breach very recently, and now of course everybody is talking about the logged Forte, the Java things, right, everywhere, and people on Twitter were actually complaining that this happened on a Friday night and they had to stay back, their weekend gone and all that.
And then all the holidays gone. Everybody's
Yeah.
holiday cancelled.
Everybody's cursing Log4j. And in fact, China, I read one report, I don't know how far it's true. China has sort of cancelled some of its contract with Alibaba because Alibaba reported it first to Apache and not to the government. So some such thing. So that, I think that Rajmohan is meaning that. So how do we stop this? Or is it going to be something that will keep on happening like this? And we call this, I think, 0-day something, right?
Right.
So will these keep on happening, and how are we prepared? So I think that's what his question was.
Yeah, I mean, sadly, it is evolving, and the only way to go about it is to expect the unexpected and be paranoid to a good extent. So people who work in the security industry go through a lot of burnout because of such scenarios. That's another flip side of working in this industry, right? And besides, continuous monitoring helps to see an attack in action. All of it costs manpower, money. And another note I would like to bring up is the Log4j is a open source software.
Correct.
Right? It's been open sourced by the Apache Foundation. Right? But it is available free, and enterprises have deployed it without paying a penny for it. And now complaining about it, how what gives? I mean, why should who should be blamed? And people, organizations, large organizations. We are talking about any large organization. Can't they allocate some budget for open source software development? The software is developed by people across the globe. It is available free of cost. But somebody has to pay everybody's bill, right? Whoever is working on it. That kind of a support, organization should gear up and provide support towards open source initiatives. If not, I don't know. I wouldn't say if not all, but they should at least provide support towards applications, software that they use widely. Right? Let's say X organization uses Log4j and for all their application. If it is a paid software, they would pay for it. So they can even very minuscule percent of that fund will go for development of the application. The developers will be able to continuously work towards it. So that such scenarios can be prevented. So that is one. But on the larger spectrum, 0 days, these are continuous things. There is no stoppage to it, because what software we think, what application we think is absolutely secure today, somebody or the other keeps tinkering with it. They find an issue with it. If it is a security professional, mostly, or people who debug applications, fuzz applications, a whole lot of them do it as a thankless job, right? They share this information to the security community, to the vulnerability database. They publish it so that everybody is able to immediately take action on it. But of course, there are organizations, brokerage organizations, who purchase the 0 days for a lump sum money as well, right? And then they sell it to be it nation state actors, or to anybody, whoever is going to bid and pay more high price, which can be used to exploit vulnerabilities that can impact millions of people, right?
Correct. Yeah, Suman.
So I think I have three different things to say, and I'll start off with the Log4j versus the SolarWinds thing, right? Because both of them have basically been in the news and has captured our collective imagination, right?
Correct.
But and both of them have been high impact, as in they've impacted thousands of individuals across the globe.
Correct.
right? So quantitatively, they are very similar. They appear to be similar, but qualitatively, they're very, very different issues, and we need to understand and appreciate the differences. For example, the SolarWinds breach did not happen overnight. It was a well-crafted nation-state adversary with a motive of espionage, who'd been researching the target for months, and then who had been inside the system for about a year at least before they got basically before they got burnt, before this. And it was by chance that this FireEye employee got an alert that someone was using his or her credentials, that basically kickstarted the investigation, which actually found out the breach. Otherwise, people probably wouldn't have known about it even today.
Correct.
Right. So it's it's like the top level, the most qualified of adversaries, right? Against them, you really have very little chance. On the other hand, I mean, you have a couple of guys playing Minecraft on a server, and they're basically shooting the gib, and one of them just decided, let's look at log4j, and they go on and find this vulnerability. It's very different.
Correct. No, I
right?
understand it.
So I would say yes, log4j also have had a lot of impact because a lot of people use it, but there wasn't really any motive, or it wasn't really the outcome of an attack.
Correct. Well, I understand. I understand what you're saying.
Right. So that was the first thing I wanted to say. The second thing is,
sure.
I think a lot of us worry that cyber attacks are increasing, and the world we're living in is becoming increasingly unsafe. There is some truth to the statement, but it's also mostly false, and I'll tell you why. The truth of that statement comes from the fact that over time, what's happening is the kind of expertise you need to launch an attack is basically going down. Why? Because the tools tools are evolving, right? They're becoming better. So you can now launch more and more complex attacks. So you have this scissor effect, right? Which is why we are seeing a lot more complex attacks a lot more frequently. Okay. And media basically, hypes those high impact cases, and we get the sense that probably we are moving towards a more unsafe future. Now, what we really should do is we should be looking at research, and there is this professor called Eric Jardin, and he's an assistant professor of political science and at Virginia Tech, and he wrote a paper on the information security on this conundrum back in 2017. And what he found out was that while at the aggregate level it appears that the world is getting increasingly unsafe, if we measure safety as the number of hacking attempts that are happening per year. But if you're not looking at the aggregate level, but if you divide the population into naive and tech savvy users, what you'll see is that for each subgroup of users, the number of hacking attempts have actually gone down over time. What we are seeing is essentially a statistical paradox. It's called Simpson's paradox, and it happens because we have dissimilar subgroups who have different propensities to get hacked, and the rate at which each of these subgroups are expanding is very different. So what's happening is, while at the group level, while both savvy and naive users are facing fewer attacks over the years, because the number of naive users are growing at an explosive rate, the total number of hacking attempts per year is going up. So if you look at an aggregate rate, when you come, so basically if you're combining both naive and tech savvy users, what you'll see is that the number of hacking attempts has gone up over time. Maybe if you looked at per capita hacking attempts, you would see that they have actually gone down.
Okay, because of the larger user base.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a statistical anomaly. It's paradox because we are not looking at the right set of statistics.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
just to soothe your viewers, I think we're basically getting safer. It's not that we're becoming less safe over time.
Okay. Yeah. And the third point you wanted to make?
So yeah, that was the third. I think
That was
third
that, yeah,
point.
correct. That was the third point. Yeah.
Oh, that was the third point. And before I ask the next question, let me, before I forget, ask you one thing, Suman. You had referred some 3-4 good papers. If you don't mind, if you send links to Boopathy, Boopathy can pass it on to.
So that we can put it in
and
the
so that we can
description
put
of
it in
the-
our description,
Sure,
so that
sure.
whoever is interested can go ahead and read those papers.
Boopathy, you can also add
Yeah,
any
you can. Yeah,
book
Boopathy
name.
also has made
So if you
a
have a
couple
book
of
or book name, so I can find it,
yeah.
link in Amazon link I can give. Okay.
And we can.
So one thing, Suresh, what's very surprising. Okay, one is statistically speaking, Boopathy and Suma are explaining a larger scale. Okay. Now I don't know. I'm a technological moron. Okay. So 2 years ago, we had what I understood was 2 years ago, 3 years ago in India, like what we see in Western movies, Hollywood movies, we had a system that if you're using iPad or mobile, okay, you're using the same IP. You're within the office or house, you can print from there directly to your printer. Okay. Now we have got a printer. We got printers. I mean, okay, I don't want to get into details. So we got printers where you don't need to be using the same IP. All you need to procure the IP and from an aeroplane or anywhere, you can print it. Okay. And the same thing, somebody tried to fix a guide. It has happened. It happened within the last 3-4 months. Okay. And somebody got the IP of somebody's house. They put, I don't know, they opened the refrigerator and I don't know what all things they have done. So last 2, 3, 4 months, it has happened. So at the minute level, it is creating a problem for individuals because we don't have education, we don't have awareness. Okay, Boopathy knows I am an agriculturist. Salabha, why should I get into all these things? So I would rather throw away all the gadgets and live in peace. So like that, everybody can do that, right?
Yeah. No, I also wanted to just ask both of you. So I read somewhere that typical attacks on larger systems take almost up to 200 days to find out. And they take another 50, 60 days for it to be fully fixed. Is this number the right one? What is your own experience and this thing?
Roughly,
So,
yeah. I would say I'll agree to that. Somewhere in those in those ranges.
So now I just wanted to just highlight this to people because an attack happens today, right? It is going to take you more than 6 months before they even discover that. So you don't know what all has gone off from there. So that somebody reports an attack and says that it has happened. It probably not happened yesterday. It's probably happened 6 months back, right?
Right.
So it's, yeah.
It is true because as I mentioned earlier, it requires continuous monitoring, triggers and alarms to be set. You need in a very small organization. This is not the focus area for us right now for this question.
Correct.
Probably large organizations, right? They should have their security operations center.
Correct.
They should have their blue teams and red teams and purple teams set up. They should spend on this. It's still in India particularly. It's very difficult. Quite frankly, as a consultant approaching an organization, saying that okay, let me standardize your security practices. Let me implement information management security system. So anything of that, information security management system. So anything of that sort is not well received, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Right? They say no. There is not much, nothing.
Work. Yeah.
That's the approach that's often I have faced.
Yeah. So I would just want to make a point here. In fact, in one of the top 10 things of this Open Web Application Software Foundation,
Mhm.
Thing is that most companies don't have a good logging and monitoring system,
Right.
right? That's in the top 10. That means
True.
that
True.
you don't even know if an attack has happened.
Right.
Uh,
So in an application, you have what is called as authentication and then authorization,
correct.
right? Two prime aspects when it comes to an application. So
Hmm.
authorization is you key in a username and password or a token, whatever it is, you gain access to the application. Sorry, that is the authentication,
Authentication, yes.
right?
Authorization, yeah.
And then comes your authorization or the access control system, right?
Hmm.
Which part of the application can you access with this credential, right?
Hmm.
So application might have multiple branches. So let's say in an organization you have HR, you have finance, you have IT, you might have a design department, you might have a manufacturing or a production department. So an individual who has got access for a production department shouldn't be able to access HR department files or whatever information that they can see, or
Correct.
finance department's information. But if, as you said, uh, how can this be identified? You have to log it.
Correct.
You have to log every
Action.
authentication that happens. You have to log every time a particular section of the application is being accessed. So only, and then somebody has to monitor it,
Correct.
right? So with these two aspects missing, as you said, roughly about that's the ballpark number that is there in the industry, wherein it takes about 200-250 days for you to even know that you've been
Hacked. You can
hacked,
hack
or
it.
he has been
Yeah.
breached.
Yeah, Suman.
So I think you are probably referring to one of the IBM Ponemon studies, right? Cost of data breach calculator. That's what
Okay.
I think that's where this number. I've seen this number.
No, I think
Anyway.
I saw it in that Open Web Application Software Foundation, OWASF.
Right.
I
It's
think
very likely that they picked up this number from IBM Ponemon research that they publish every year.
Okay.
Now the thing is, this number is very much dependent on the geography and the industry.
Correct.
And the second thing is that when these sort of researches happen, they are usually talking about. I mean, they say that they're talking about. They've considered both large and small organizations, but my experience, having spoken to a number of smaller and medium organization owners, has been that they are not at all worried about security, or they're not even aware the kind of risks they're exposed to, right? And I'm not sure that that is captured in these sort of reports.
Okay. So basically, there you say because they haven't found the bug, there is no bug.
Exactly.
Suresh, that what Boopathy says is a very good example. I know some logistics company. Okay, what these fellows have done is I outsource the analytics part, which gives them revenue to some other company. That company is not worried about these people's network. What they do is they give analytics, they report about the market where they can earn revenue, and they deploy the whatever their findings. Okay, that's what I mean. I know there are large organizations, not only small, large organizations. They don't do anything. Like for example, many governments sectors, there is no awareness at all. Absolutely no awareness. There are thousands of employees are there, and some of them are critical. Bhupati.
And
electricity, power, okay, power, coal, so many other very critical sectors. There is no awareness.
Correct. And as Suman was saying, in certain cases, in small, as Boopathy was also discussing, some of the small cases they wouldn't even be logging, and even you don't recruit engineer of a certain caliber, so they don't even probably know about injection attack when they're writing their forms, right? I mean in smaller websites you probably can do a simple injection attack, which today's should be the minimal that you can stop, right? And as Suman correctly says, the numbers that probably we are looking at 200 days pertains to larger organizations who have logging and monitoring capability. As we said, smaller organization doesn't log, it doesn't know, so it just is for them not.
So Suresh,
Yeah, I think
I have one question. No, I have
running out
one
of
question which you also can answer, Suresh.
Yeah.
Okay, if there is something of we read about spyware. Okay, our government wants to monitor somebody. Okay,
yeah.
how does it mean? How it happens actually? I mean, only hackers are doing it, attacking somebody, putting Trojan or some nonsense stuff which I read in newspapers and magazines. I mean, okay, internet or some kind of bug like Pegasus software. They infiltrated into that. So does while doing surveillance, the government also send something? I mean, how it happens? I mean, how actually whether in Twitter account or my email account is hacked, okay. But what is the difference between that and surveillance? Like government may do it for security purposes, right? They also send some Trojan to us on our head. Boopathy.
So, if when it comes to surveillance, right, you don't want to get burnt. You want to continue the surveillance and exit out of the surveillance process without the entity
Leaving a
knowing
trace.
about the surveillance. That's the important factor about surveillance. So, in government entity or a state actor, if they want to surveil you, they have all the power to do that. So in case of Pegasus, let's take for example, activists were surveilled, evidences were planted. So these are all very what to say tricky things, right? Now, first thing, there is no oversight. That is what we are all asking the government to bring in as a legislation. The IT subcommittee had questions about it recently. It is your IT, the data protection bill, which is tabled, which widely opens up every agency in the government's disposal, completely protects all of them, saying that any agency for any such need, for lawful need, can surveil, right? Now,
how do they surveil? That main question is how do they do it?
Sir, like, for example, what he's saying is, see, if your mobile has a Pegasus software, how was it induced into your mobile? How was it put into your mobile?
As I told earlier, you have these unsuspecting links that comes to you, and there are, particularly with Pegasus, the vulnerability was such that with the limited understanding of it, what I would be able to say is that it's called a zero-click vulnerability, wherein you don't need to even click anything. So it will come as a class 0 message. What is called as a class 0 message is generally sent by the operators, right? The mobile operators. So
can I just interject? Can I just interrupt you for a second and just take this question?
Sure,
Suman.
So I mean, there's recently been some research and some publications about this particular attack, okay, that Pegasus uses. So as Boopathy correctly said, it is a zero-click attack. And we'll go into that in a second. But before that, let me just give you a broad answer. How would you get compromised? You would get compromised if you perform an action that the attacker wants you to perform. Why would you doing something help an attacker? Because it will help that attacker put a program on your device that the attacker can access or control remotely. Okay, so that's the basic idea.
Okay.
The thing is, these days, most devices and most operating systems are fairly smart and they want to give you a fantastic experience. So what they do is they keep running things, they keep doing things
The
even when
background.
you are not actively interacting with the phone or your laptop, right?
Correct.
And if I, an attacker, can figure out what sort of background processing is happening, and I can, if I can uh, figure out any bugs in that sort of background processing, I can probably also exploit it, and I can then send a message that that I know that your phone or laptop will automatically process before you even have had the chance to open it,
Yeah. Okay.
right? And that will basically trigger the vulnerability.
Hmm.
Does that answer? Does that
Yeah.
help
Yeah.
explain?
So essentially, if I look at it, it's more like, when on your system you have, say, an Adobe update or a Java update or a Windows update happening automatically in the background, right?
Right.
Yeah. So something like that, if they can get hold of it, you don't require to click anything, and they will update. Like mobiles mostly update all your applications automatically, right?
Okay, Suresh,
Only
I
when they
mean,
do.
Suresh, the
So
bottom line is the bottom line remote access?
yes,
Somebody will have remote
yeah,
access.
somehow remote access. What it means, Rajman, suppose you're using WhatsApp. So
Okay.
without you doing anything, WhatsApp will update your software on the phone. Okay,
Okay.
only when you're updating the operating system, you are asked to do that, click your concurrence. Otherwise, most of these updates are automatic. So if WhatsApp gets automatically updated, suppose let's assume somebody to a WhatsApp update where to send his own software, right, as an update
Yeah.
or something, then your that software gets into your system, something like that.
That
Okay.
would be, yes, that is one way of doing it. And this particular way is known as a supply chain attack. And this is
Hmm.
exactly what happened with SolarWinds.
Hmm.
On the other hand, the attack that Pegasus uses is simpler in theory. Why? Because it relies on WhatsApp processing your messages even before you've
Correct.
read them.
Correct.
Okay, so that's what it does. It sends it sends an SMS that it knows your phone will
Will
process even before
process
you have
exactly.
unlocked your phone. Okay,
Exactly.
so that pre-processing is what they rely on.
Reliant. For example, Rajmohan, if you book a ticket, for example, on
Mhm.
IRCTC, and IRCTC sends a mail to your Gmail account,
Okay.
right? Google automatically reads it and sets up a
Calendar.
schedule in
Yeah.
your calendar, right?
Yeah.
So what
Yeah.
he's saying is similar to that. They will send something there. They are expecting Google to read it. When
Mhm.
Google reads it, then their software gets installed. You get my point?
Yeah.
You are not in the whole process. You have somewhere right in the beginning when you installed your phone, right? When you made your installation on the phone, you have given permission for this
Okay.
Google to read your messages.
Yeah.
So they are depending on something like Google. It need not be Google, but
Yeah.
they're depending on one of the softwares to read it without your permission. And when it reads it, it downloads the software, whatever is it that they do internally, so that the software gets done here.
Okay, but Suresh, I mean, okay, now let us go to the what Boopathy raised. No, he's not there. So doesn't the government require that some kind of a control because such a volatile situation? Any government, Australian government, or New Zealand government, or American government, Chinese, like in China is a kind of a nightmarish scenario. So somebody went there and said in Beijing, okay, in that city, every street means every street has got at least 10 to 15 CCTV cameras.
Yeah,
Okay.
correct.
If you get out of your apartment, you get into the bus, you go somewhere, everything is recorded, and they have the face now just beyond. They've gone beyond facial recognition, and from a distance it scans your retina, so it immediately connects you to somewhere. They're like, recently somebody tweeted, CNN tweeted that real-time censoring is happening. CNN is live feeding. If you're sending a live feed, in that there's some kind of a patch comes, and that means China is censoring what is being said. So my question is that maybe the extreme case, but don't the governments also request some kind of a control? Boopathy?
Okay,
Yeah, of course. So that's the whole deal about privacy and data protection, right? Uh, Data protection about the individual. Uh, uh, it should, government is also an entity which should be covered under that act, wherein anybody and everybody in any agency has the capability and uh, is able to invade a citizen's privacy. That's not done, right? So
yeah.
uh, so there has got to be an oversight. It's a being a security professional from that aspect, I would also say that it is a twin edged double-edged sword, right? So the reason that is cited by the government is the national security, right? But the approach is looking at everybody as a criminal. That's the approach that we cannot go with. So you cannot act upon that kind of an approach wherein and there is no oversight. Say for example, in a police station, if a constable level person, for example, the lowest, right, probably, so a constable level person has the authority to arrest somebody forget about cyber security and information security and surveillance, all of that for a moment. Can a constable level person arrest somebody today?
No
legally?
Idea. I have no idea.
Yeah, so it has to be signed by approved and signed by a supervisory level person. I mean, at least I believe a sub-inspector level person.
No,
right?
they are. I think if I remember correctly, they all have the power to file FIR. Okay.
Yeah, they can file.
Beyond that, to make an arrest on somebody, I think you need inspector level, some kind of.
Exactly. So by law, we have the legal protection in the existing framework where there is an oversight, right? So who
At
can
every level, yeah.
Yes, who can do what? And of course it gets flouted is a different story, but at least we have a framework which is supposed to be followed, and at least somebody can raise a question against it if it is being flouted, and if you're if you're finding it to be flouted. So point in case here in surveillance, if a constable level person can authorize surveillance on an individual, imagine the chaos.
No, wait, Bhupati, that's, I think, yeah, I mean, I also got it wrong. I think only you need a court order to arrest somebody.
Right.
Or arrest warrant is issued by them, or
right.
some other DAG level officer, like that. If you mean like there is already existing in that law, that I think DAG level officer should mean only they can authorize to tap somebody's mobile.
Correct. So now today it is, there is a for a phone tapping, that is the process. You need to have such a high level of authority by signing it off. Now today you give that approval in a broad way to every inspector level person also. Then that authority gets propagated to a constable level person also.
Okay, so basically, so I mean, okay, Suresh, now Boopathy says there is no oversight. Okay,
yeah, but
so
Suman,
where according to
Suman,
where according to you, or okay, we'll go to Suman. So where according to you the line, the divide, that okay, there is a necessity or inherent function of the government to secure everybody Okay, security at the lowest level to national security to what Bhupati is telling.
Privacy, yeah.
Yeah, privacy, yes.
Yeah, Suman, your
I
thoughts.
think Boopathy raised a number of issues, and I don't think we'll have time to cover all of them.
Yeah, okay.
I feel
Right,
the
but
same. Yeah,
but
yeah.
I would like to point out a couple of things. The first is, who's buying these sort of offensive security tooling? It's important to look at the kind of governments who are buying this. You won't see the technologically advanced countries buying these spywares. Why? Because that sort of capability already resides
Exists with them.
internally, right? So, for example, in the US, the NSA has probably the most advanced surveillance capabilities. Okay. Now, but then surveillance isn't really legal, right? Massive, persistent surveillance is not legal. So what did they do? So they brought in regulation in the form of the Patriot Act to sort of justify, this sort of data collection in the name of national security. If you look at the technological south, as in the countries who do not have enough capability, what they're now relying on is this group of operators who are selling this offensive
Surveillance technology,
right? And this, if you look at the technological south, they not only do they lack the technological capability, but they also lack any sort of regulation, right? So they're also operating in a regulatory vacuum, right? So they're basically, I guess they're making hay while the sun shines, sort of. I hate to use that proverb, but yeah. But I think the primary issue around this debate is there a constitutionally granted process that is being followed with surveillance is happening? Otherwise,
wait. Suman, that a very valid point that Bhupati has told already, that government should also be part of under that act. Okay, that is where he is talking about oversight and all. So if we go by what you say before we go to Suresh, if we go by what you say, if India develops an infrastructure, constitutional provision is there, is that fine?
No, I'm saying okay, so I wasn't clear perhaps. I'm saying that surveillance, so if you look at traditional surveillance mechanisms that we have in the law, they say that surveillance can happen only for a month or two, I think, right?
Yeah,
it
correct.
cannot keep on happening. And then every 2 months, I think a cabinet level secretary has to review it, right? So there's this entire mechanism, this process that safeguards your rights. So until and unless we have something in the constitution that safeguards our rights in the digital domain.
Again, something else is happening. Like Bhupati was, I think we were talking something earlier. Bhupati, if I'm not wrong, the railway stations like Central, VT in Bombay, Howrah in Kolkata, they all have facial recognition software, correct? They already installed. They are already using it. Like, for example, in major airports, why they done away with all these baggage screening, this, that, etc. So only specific individuals are stopped and frisked. Earlier, it was not like that. But today in Delhi, I don't need anything because I'm a frequent flyer in Delhi. My face, my retina, every damn thing is there. Central station, nobody will stop me. Like if Bhupati and I go, nobody will stop us in Central Station. If I go to VT, yes, probably my face is not there. Okay, and Howrah, my face is not there. So, am I correct? We already have that.
Yeah,
I am not sure to what extent that is true, but of course, in the surveillance with respect to infrastructure like railway stations and in airports, it varies. Probably in what is available in railway station might be a little of lesser quality than what is available in an airport. But I don't think a whole lot of proactive surveillance is happening at this point in time, at least in India, right? To my knowledge, I may be completely wrong as well, but in other countries, of course, yes, there is a whole lot of proactive surveillance happens. As you said, the moment an image, a person gets scanned, retina details and facial parameters, dimensions are sent across, a quick check is done routinely, and it keeps doing that flagging process.
Okay. No, I just have one this thing. So maybe we are probably just moving out of the cybersecurity topic that we had, because this is a completely different topic, and the challenges are more like Rajmohan. Just to answer Rajmohan, uh, even today, now I think there are some privacy bills being discussed, and even for this linking of Aadhaar with our voter ID, that was one of the main objections raised by, say, the foundation of internet freedom, right? I think Apar Gupta is part of that, and they have been fighting for it, saying that for all this, there is a lot of things where data can leak out. So from the cyber security perspective, the idea is not about you surveilling. You can surveil, but who has access to data is not yet clearly defined. That Sri Krishna committee and others came
Right.
up, but who has access to data? For example, you take the data from airport, you have data from this. Who can access the data is the biggest challenge, and there is where people believe, at least the Internet Freedom Foundation of Indian chapter, they all believe that we still don't have stringent safeguards for personal personal safeguards yet in that area. So I don't think everybody is against surveillance, because of certain cases, first, uh, are the cases justified? That again has to be guaranteed. And second, who has access to the surveillance data? That is another very important part, because in India, everything is open. I mean, what sort of safeguards do they give that even if you surveil a person, who has access to that data? I think is that, as I said, this is probably, we should discuss this at a completely one full episode.
Yeah,
by
because,
itself.
because the question
No,
actually.
that's an
Correct.
important and interesting thing going forward, because as you said, it is like what you said about China is similar to what they show in that Minority Report movie, right? As
True. True.
No,
Cruise,
it's very, no, it's highly.
yeah, Tom Cruise moves around.
No,
It
you go to
reads his retina and gives him his
No, see, I mean,
ads.
Suresh, if you go to CNN, they have been continuously reporting this, okay?
Yes.
And what is happening the last 4 or 5 months itself, the speed with which these surveillance capabilities, the power in the hand of state in China is grown exponentially, it has grown, okay?
Correct.
Now they are able to intercept the foreign, somebody who's a broadcaster, they can interrupt their broadcast and regularly, I mean, inexplicably.
Actually, that's actually one of the simpler things, Rajmohan. Actually, context sensitive ads have been coming from a long time. I mean, intercepting video images is a fairly well-known topic, because given where to put the ads, when the breaks will come.
No, when you're doing
No, I understand. Even rubbing off. See, it's just a question of detecting patterns real time, and putting it. It would not a very. I wouldn't. It's not like a very difficult technology, but I get your point. Like to what level they are doing. But anyway, I think we deviated a bit out of the topic, and we are running out of time. I guess it's close to 2 hours. So let us close this. Very quick, 2 to 3 liners on what should individuals do to protect themselves in this scenario from cyber attacks.
Correct. I'm like person like me.
2 to 3 lines, just 2 or 3 bullet points. Boopathy.
Simple thing is, first thing is to understand your exposure to begin with. Do a sanitation check in wherever possible, wherever available. Use a 2-factor authentication. And whenever there is an application that asks for accessing your information from various other applications or within your system, in your mobile phone or in your system, think twice before even thrice or even 5 times or 10 times before giving that kind of a permission. And use a password manager. If not that, don't use passwords. Instead, use passphrases. And when you're using a computer or a mobile phone, keep your operating system up to date. When you receive links to very alluring messages, it could be anything or very innocent messages even, but even from known contacts, when if it is suspicious or out of order, it is very tricky. But we'll have to learn that slowly, and do not click links that can be that are looking suspicious, or that are out of order.
Okay.
And I think that's the basic hygiene. And don't use the same password for various other services. There is a popular joke, you wouldn't share your underwear, so don't share your passwords with
Password.
various services, right? So because what happens is, when if you're increasing your threat surface, or attack surface rather, by using the same passwords in various services. If one service gets breached, so they attackers can try using the same passwords for your various other credentials,
Services.
services that you might be using.
Hmm.
Randomly, they all these things, a lot of these things are automated, and randomly it will do checks. So try not to do that. I think that's pretty much that I can say at this point in time. Suman, to you.
Okay, so I guess there are 4 or 5 things that we all can do. The first thing is to understand where your threats come from, and that is what we call threat modeling. Right, so figure out the sort of devices you use, the sort of networks you use to access the internet, and figure out the websites you browse to, or the services that you purchased or use, and then think through who can access or abuse these services or networks or devices to attack you, and to what end, what goal can a potential attacker have in attacking you, right? So this is a basic threat modeling thing. Once you've done that, make sure that you don't increase your threat or attack surface. How do you do that? By limiting the number of services you are using, or by simply disciplining yourself from clicking on every single link that you see. Okay. The third thing is to be aware, because this is extremely rapidly evolving. If you should try to at least read whatever news is coming up about security, right? That gives you some idea of what's happening. And then look at the services that you have to use or must use for you, and then look at the things that these services are doing with your data, and make sure that you have given informed consent to the sort of processing that they claim to be doing. And if not, demand accountability and transparency from these companies. And once more, as more and more people start demanding transparency, I think the overall cybersecurity landscape is going to evolve much faster. And finally, I think it's about separation of concerns. If you're going to if you're going to make a transaction from a browser, don't use the same browser for for downloading stuff from unknown websites. Keep 2 browsers, probably, things like that. Simple stuff. And of course, as Boopathy mentioned, 2-factor authentication. And use your browser's password manager. Stop trying to memorize passwords or things that are difficult secrets. So yeah, I think these are more than enough.
Okay. Basically, you're saying use your brain. Okay. Suresh, we have just 1 minute left. Please.
Yeah, so let me conclude here. I will not, generally I summarize, but since we don't have that time, I will not go ahead and summarize. I will just thank both of you, both Boopathy and Suman. Thank you very much for a very enlightening discussion. And hopefully, the people who are seeing this will get some idea of what everybody is facing, not only the common man, but the government, the organizations, everybody is facing, and how challenging the whole thing is. And as we get more and more into newer devices, newer high-speed networks, and you don't know what sort of technology will evolve tomorrow, the chances of us getting hacked and other things, because our whole thing is online now. So we have to be extra careful, because finally what we lose will be our own money, which we don't want to do, because it's not easy to come by, but it's very easy to go if you're not careful enough. So to all of you who are watching, please be careful on all this and try following whatever was said here by Boopathy and Suman. So once again, thanking both of them. Let's end today's session. Thank you, guys.
Yeah,
Thank you for having us on this session. Appreciate it.
And like Suresh said, be careful. At least I have one fellow, Boopathy. I can hold his neck of him, and then whatever happens to me, like that, millions and millions of people.
But Rajmohan, once you lost money, then going to Boopathy is not going to give you anything.
No, he's
and Boopathy is now saying true, which means that don't ask me money.
No, he can take back the money from whoever hacked. Okay, that's what the reverse hacking will do. Yeah, it will happen. Anyway, so thanks, Boopathy. Thanks, Suman. So to all the viewers, we will try to put it up tomorrow. So Merry Christmas.
And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.